Okay, the purpose of this video is to show you how to do the practice exercise for Unit 5, Activity 3. This is calculating the costs of goods sold using the worksheet. So what I have open now in front of you is the template from Unit 5, Activity 3. It's at the very bottom of the content page. You can download it there. One of the reasons I'm making this video is that obviously it's helpful for those of you who weren't able to listen to my lesson in class or needed a refresher. But also this assignment, what you're supposed to do in this practice activity isn't immediately apparent. The directions aren't very good and there's not a whole lot of instruction as to what to do. So I wanted to go through this with you and just make sure you get some sense of what's going on here. So the other thing that's going to be helpful to you is I wrote the step-by-step instructions for how to do what we're going to do here and put them in a Word doc and made them available to you on the course homepage. So if you go to your list of assignments and you scroll down to this particular one for Unit 5, Activity 3, this practice exercise. In the far right column, you're going to find a link here, and this will link to the Word document that I'm talking about. And so if you open that up, it's going to look like this. And as I say, it just tells you what the cost of goods sold is, and then it just gives you some directions as to how to do it, which is basically what I'm also going to show you here. So you've got both options, and hopefully one or both are helpful to you. All right, so the cost of goods sold. This is a concept that's important in a merchandise business, which you've been talking about over the past couple of lessons. Merchandise business, remember, is one that sells goods or products, which is distinct from the types of businesses that we were doing accounting for earlier in the term. Early in the term, we were doing accounting for service businesses, so where you sell some type of service to people, whether that's lawyering services, accounting services, plumbing services, hair cutting services, whatever, where you do something for other people and get paid for it. And so now we're on to the merchandise businesses, and as I said, they sell stuff. So they might sell cell phones or water bottles or candles or any number of things, right? And so because of that, excuse me, the different kinds of business have a couple of different accounting things. And so one of those differences in merchandise business accounting is the cost of goods sold. And so if you look up here at the top of the Word doc that I put together, I just have a definition for cost of goods sold. It's the major expense in merchandising companies and represents what the seller paid for the inventory it is sold. So basically, let's say you're selling sweatshirts, and in order to sell sweatshirts, you have to buy a bunch of them from either a manufacturer or a wholesaler. And so you buy a bunch of sweatshirts with the idea that you're then going to sell them to the public at an increased price. Well, whatever you paid for those sweatshirts and however much it costs for you to obtain those is the cost of goods sold. So you can't just sell the sweatshirts and then whatever you make on your sales think that that's pure profit. Because remember, you had to buy those sweatshirts in the first place, and hopefully you bought them for less than you sold them for, right? So the cost of goods sold is kind of the difference between what you bought the sweatshirt for and what you're able to sell it for. And then there are a few other things that go into that make that the cost of goods sold, which we'll get into here. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out the cost of goods sold for a business. And in this practice exercise, we get the accounting worksheet that tells us all about the different accounts in this company. And so what we're going to try and do is figure out what the cost of goods sold for this company are based on what's in the worksheet. So I'm going to flash over there to our Excel sheet now, and we can go ahead and get started. So hopefully by now the worksheet looks familiar to you, or it's something that you've seen a few times in class. And hopefully you kind of know what to do with it as far as where to put these accounts in the trial balance, where you can put them in the income statement and the balance sheet. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to transfer over all of the accounts or the values in the accounts to the appropriate places on the worksheets, depending on what kind of account it is and where it belongs. So I'll do that, and I'll hopefully explain it to you along the way if you're not totally sure. But we'll start up here at the top with the bank account. Bank account, remember, is our assets. And so assets are a balance sheet item, as our accounts receivable. Allowance for doubtful accounts is a contra asset account, you might remember. Merchandise inventory, so that's the stuff that we have on hand that we'd like to sell. So that's considered an asset. Our supplies, our prepaid insurance, our office equipment, the amortization accounts that's accounting for our equipment, the automobile, the amortized accounts accounting for our amortization of our automobiles. And then we get down to accounts payable, which is a liability, which is also a balance sheet account. Loan payable, also a liability. Mortgage payable is a liability. And then we get to our capital account, which is an equity account, which is also a balance sheet item. And then we get down to the drawings, which is another equity account, which belongs on the balance sheet as well. So those amounts there and those values, along with those accounts, are ones that belong on our balance sheet. They are assets, liabilities, and equity accounts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste those over to the balance sheet section. All right, so that's easy enough. And then we'll look at the rest of the totals in the trial balance. And all of those are going to go into our income statement. And remember, what's included on our income statement is expenses, revenues, and expenses, revenues. I'm drawing a blank here. That's it for now. That's what we're going to have on there for now. Expenses and revenues. Sorry about that. Which are these here. So I'm going to copy and paste those into our income statement. Right. And so we're almost done with putting stuff into the worksheet, or changing stuff around or transferring it into the proper places. And the adjustments we don't have to worry about because we don't have any adjustments, at least as far as we're concerned right now. So we'll just leave these two columns blank. What we do need to add, and this is different than what we have done before, or different than maybe what you've seen before, is our merchandise inventory. We also have to add to the income statement. So this amount that we have here, the 46,300, that's in the debit column of the merchandise inventory account, that is our beginning inventory. So at the beginning of this accounting period, this is how much inventory we had. So if we're selling sweatshirts, we had $46,300 worth of sweatshirts that we wanted to sell eventually. So we're going to move that over to the income statement into the debit column. So that is our beginning inventory. And then we're also given the ending inventory. So at the end of this accounting period, how much inventory we had left, or the value of how much inventory we had left. And this actually isn't included on the worksheet. They actually give it to us in a little note down here. It says, note, this year's ending inventory value is $43,950. So we're going to put that in the credit column right next to the debit that we put in the beginning inventory. So we'll now put in the ending inventory for the period. All right, so that's what we started with, $46,300 worth of sweatshirts. And now we have $43,950 worth of sweatshirts. So it looks like we made some sales and we sold some sweatshirts and got rid of some of them out of our warehouse or wherever we're keeping them. All right, so that's step number 2. Step number 1 was moving the stuff into the balance sheet and income statement categories or sections. And step 2 was putting in the beginning and year's beginning inventory and the year's ending inventory into the income statement there. All right, so that's the end of step number 2. Now, step number 3 is where we actually get to work on finding the cost of goods sold. And so that, as I said, is kind of the point of this whole exercise. So over here on the side, I'm just going to write some things down just to keep track of what we're doing. And hopefully you can follow along that way. So what we need to account for first when we're doing our cost of goods sold, and you can see the formula for cost of goods sold on the Word doc here. So if you want to follow along using the Word doc, you can, or you can just watch the video and see how I do it. But it's all here, so you don't have to memorize it, at least for now. I mean, ideally you would memorize it, but obviously not in real time as you're watching me, right? So anyway, all right. So the first thing we have to put in, or the first part of the cost of goods sold formula, is our starting inventory. So we just put that into our worksheet, and it's in the debit column of the merchandise inventory account in the income statement. So it's that $46,300. So I'm going to put that over here. So that's the first value that we're going to be working with our cost of goods sold formula. And I have start in inventory there. I should probably add the G to be a little bit more correct, right? All right, so we've got that. The next thing that we have to do is add an amount for purchases. And what purchases entail are all of the purchases, or all of the, what would you say? Drawing a blank, end of the day. What was I saying? So all the stuff that you've bought for your inventory. There's got to be a better way of saying that, but I'm not sure what it is right now. So if we're selling sweatshirts as our business, purchases will be all of the sweatshirts that we bought from our supplier, from like the wholesaler, or from the manufacturer. And so we got purchases, and this is available here on the income statement or the trial balance. But our cost of purchases for right now is $17,880. So we spent that amount on all of our sweatshirts. And this is the only part that is a little bit tricky. So with purchases, you can't just include that number from the purchases account. There are a couple other accounts that affect the purchases account or can change that number, and those come below it. So you've got the purchase discounts, purchase returns and allowance, and then the freight in number. Purchase discounts is just, the amount of discounts that we received on the purchases that we made. So if we bought a bunch of sweatshirts, maybe we got 20% off for buying a certain amount, and that equaled $550. So we have to subtract that from our initial purchases number. So I'm just going to make a note of that there. And let's see. Just blow it to the side, 550. And then the other thing is the purchase returns. So maybe we bought a bunch of sweatshirts and some of them had problems with them, or, the stitching was bad, or, whatever. We didn't like the color or something like that. So we returned $350 worth of sweatshirts. So that's also going to come out of that original purchases number. And then we've got one more number that's going to affect our purchases, and that is the freight in. Freight in meaning the delivery price or the delivery cost that it took to get those sweatshirts from the wholesaler or from the manufacturer to our business. So this is the amount that we've paid in like delivery fees, essentially. And so we have to add that to our purchase number. And so that is $3,100. And so now, in order to get our true purchases number, we have to take the original number, subtract the discounts, subtract the returns, and then add in the shipping number. So we'll get our calculator out and we'll do that here. So that's 46. Oh, no. That is 17,880 minus 550 minus 350 plus 3,100. Right, and so that gives us our true purchases number there, which is 20,080. So that is the amount that we've paid for our inventory. And let me just put some squares around this so we can see what's going on. All right. So we've got that. And then there's just one other part of the cost of goods sold. There's one other part of the cost of goods sold formula here, and that is our ending inventory, which we need to subtract from the other numbers. So ending inventory. And our ending inventory, remember, is our number that we got down here from that note. And then we also put into the income statement in the credit column, 43,950. So that's the amount of inventory that we have left in dollar amounts, right? And so we have to subtract that from the other numbers that we have here. So we're going to take the original starting inventory, 46,300. And we're going to add our purchase amount, which, remember, this is the true one, the 20,080 after the calculations that we did for the purchases. And then our ending inventory is 43,950. So let me add the 20,080. And then we are going to subtract the ending inventory, which is 43,950 minus 43,950. And that's going to give us our cost of goods sold, which is $22,430. And so that was really the whole point of the exercise, was to find the cost of goods sold. And as I said, that is the amount that it represents what the seller paid for the inventory it is sold. So that's the cost of the sweatshirts that we sold. So hopefully, when we figure out what our profit is, it exceeds that amount. If it doesn't exceed that amount, or if it's not bigger than $22,430, that means we haven't made a profit, and that means that our business is flawed. So you want to make sure that your cost of goods sold does not exceed the amount that you make off your sales, right? That would make for a failing business. All right, so that is the basic idea of this one. Like I said, the instructions on the exercise or practice exercise weren't great. So I hope that this helped you complete this. Go ahead and finish this up and submit it, and you will get some easy marks for it. Until next time, I will see you guys later.